everyone to this next talk in this series of discussions, panels, concerts, exploring Vysotsky and Dylan, exploring her work and her life and her inspiration, and for me to get to know more about you. You just have so many amazing accolades and accomplishments that I would love to talk about. Of course, your work with the work of Dylan, and then expounding on that is what we're going to really focus on today.
I'm very flattered, very, very flattered. Thank you.
Well, just a little, like a snippet of showing everybody what it is you do as a musician. Is that all right?
Twist my arm. Okay.
He visited my house. He took me to the prom. He taught me how to fish. He taught me how to boat. He asked me for my hand. He asked me for my vote. In my dreams, dreaming of him. In my dreams, once he was a nurse. Made me feel all better till he made me feel all worse. We walked crowds, struggled with his fame. We smuggled through the night, hid in a picture frame. In my dreams, in my dreams, dreaming of him. And he said he'd lend a hand, but then he didn't have one. I said that I might fall. He said go right ahead. He didn't care at all. That fall would leave me dead. In my dreams, dreaming of him. Coat in a car. He helped me change a. He said he understood me good, did even more than that. In my dreams, dreaming. In my dreams, dreaming of him. In my dreams, dreaming of him. In my dreams, dreaming of him. Dreaming of him. Dreaming of him. Dreaming of him. Dreaming.
So good. Such a great video, such a great song.
Oh,
So tell us a
can I
little
just
bit
say I
about.
love it too.
It's good. It's good when you've written something and you still like it when you hear it a million times. That's great.
Right. And when you get the giggle test, when you giggle at the end of something, that's always good.
So tell us a little bit where that song, how that song came up. We'll go back and grab some more history,
Yeah.
but let's start there.
The song is completely based on this book. All those lyrics are images from the dreams that I collected. Some are my own, some are, but I pieced them all together and rhymed and made a story out of it. And so that's where it came from. It was this wonderful, just kind of, it was kind of easy to write in a way because I had all this material in my head.
Yeah.
And then the chorus, you know, so yeah, and every bit of those lyrics is truly from one of the dreams. Like he said that I'm this was from my dream. I'm talking to Dylan. I said that I might fall. He said, go right ahead. He didn't, if that fall would leave me dead. I remember that dream really clearly. I was on the ledge out in the woods somewhere with a whole bunch of people, including him, and I was about to fall. Whatever. See ya.
Well, for context for our views, it's important to show. So obviously, Mary Lee is a musician. She's a singer songwriter, and I read that you're a Grammy award-winning songwriter. Is that right?
Well, I wrote a song that's on a Grammy-winning album. Yeah,
that's amazing. So and she's written songs. She's written
about 2003.
In 2003. She, which is so cool for a woman to, I have to support it. I love it. I think it's great. And for a woman to kind of enter this space that's pretty male dominated, and for you to enter and bring a voice, she released this record. It was an entire live album, right? Is that right?
It was a live performance that got recorded serendipitously. And then I initially just released it myself. But I started getting flooded with orders from all over the world. It's crazy. Wow.
And tell us a little bit about that whole, how that thing blossomed and just took on a life of its own.
Well, I heard that this club, Arlene's Grocery, was looking for someone to perform this album as part of this series that they did called Classic Album of All Time. And they said, well, we never thought of having a woman do it. And I said, well, okay, then I'm your man, you know. So, you know, I almost canceled several times because I thought, I can't pull this off. This is just, I'm going to sound like I'm imitating him. Who needs that?
It's a big, just to interrupt really quickly. It is a huge undertaking to try to reimagine something that's so culturally significant, that's so it's a pivotal moment for so many people in their lives and their own identity formation. So it's a big undertaking. Go ahead.
Right. You know, so I thought, well, it's a limited risk.
Right.
But then someone said, well, you have to record it. I said, okay, I'll record it. And then it took me a while to listen to it, but I was like, oh, I think this is pretty good. You can tell we're having fun. So then I just, you know, myself, I'll just sell at shows. But I sent out 3 promotional copies, one to a website called DylanCoverAlbums.com. I sent one to Billboard Magazine and one to Vin Scelsa at WFUV Radio. So it had an enormous audience. He played the album, and that's when, like, the next day I had people contacting me from Kansas, California, in Japan, like, how can I get this record? And I was like, uh-oh. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm selling Bob Dylan songs. I probably don't have the right to do that. So I contacted the publisher, Dylan's publisher, and said, do you still publish the... And they said, is this Mary Lee? Like, pride.
So you said, you mentioned that that Dylan is a huge, like, that this record was one of your favorite records. Yes. So can you just talk a little bit about your relationship with Dylan's music, as a songwriter, just as a person? Like, where does that enter into your, like, Mary Lee?
Just you breathe in Dylan, you know, and he's just so influential even when you don't know it. I mean, and that's how he got into our dreams. I think he became an archetype, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his lyrics, his storytelling, just took hold of me at some point, and that's part of what made me want to be a songwriter. I also was just kind of born a writer, I think. Mm-hmm. But I can't, you know, there was no specific moment in time, no specific event. He was just sort of infused into me without my even knowing it.
Yeah.
But he is sort of the template for a singer-songwriter.
Absolutely. And I love this way that you talk about him becoming an archetype. It's just like Vysotsky in Russia, right? That you have these people that become much larger than themselves, much bigger than themselves. They, as a very important cultural touchstone for really a communal identity, right? And and just as artists, something that we aspire to, and a form of excellence in our
Yeah.
language and our culture that we try to achieve in our own voices, right?
Yes.
So,
I
so tell us how the dreams started happening. And go ahead, please. Don't want to
Well,
interrupt.
I just wanted to say one thing about Dylan, and this is how mythological he is, because then I found out I actually made grandmother play songs on her organ from the classic American songbook, and
Mm-hmm.
Gershwin and Cole put this sort of rigid value for exact rhymes. And I for years said, well, Dylan never does inexact rhymes, Okay. So the dreams, yes. So I had this recurring dream of Dylan where we meet in the West Village in this little tiny restaurant. It's like downstairs and dark red brick walls, and there's almost no actual light. It's all, I think you're great, Mary Lee. And just dreams feel so real. Anyway, one day when I was around in this crazy bliss, it hit me that I can't be the only person dreaming of Bob Dylan. A great book. And so I just put the word out and started posting here and there and collecting people's dreams. And here we have it,
It's so cool. So tell us, I would love to get you to read us a couple of the dreams, because so these dreams they're gathered from all over the world. That's right?
Yep.
And these are people, and are they all recurring dreams? Or are they just some of them like that they had a visceral kind of memory of?
I think these are all kind of one-off.
In reading, and I think this had to do with one of your more recent works, which was the Beulah Rowley. Is that how you? But
Yeah.
I think it
Very
applies
good,
to.
Rowley.
I mean, it applies to everything. I thought it was such a true statement. And it's just because I made it up, just because I made it all up doesn't mean it isn't true. And I think that's such a great concept going into just reading about dreams, and Bob Dylan talking to you and encouraging you to not give up. Like, yes, your brain made that up, but it doesn't make it less.
To myself. That's great.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah, there's no downside here, I don't think. Well, do you
right.
have a reading that you could read from the book?
Sure. Let's see. This little, oh, here's a dream that I had. And I titled it, It's Time. I was on a big boat, like a on the floor. Dylan called me on my cell phone to tell me it was time to get up. Then my real life cell phone alarm went off, interrupting my dream of Dylan calling me on my cell phone it was time to get up. He knows everything. Oh, there's this wonderful one, but he had no shovel. That one cracks me up. And, God, I love that one. That's where that's alluded to in the song too. Oh, here's a funny one. This one came from Name Withheld. This is called, like in the 1960s or 50s or around then. This will have some meaning for you. This is called Dylan versus, I shouldn't show you the title. I didn't do that. Okay. This is Dream. I'm sitting at the kitchen table with my parents. I'm very young in the dream, only 7 or 8 years old, and the presidential election is coming. My parents are fighting about who to vote for, Bob Dylan or Pat Paulson. And one year, I don't know what year it was, 68 or something maybe, he decided to run for president. So they have this Pat Paulson for president thing going. It was a joke all over the country, but it ended up in somebody's dream.
If only those were the choices. Well, I think your time is always compressed. You don't have the time to, when you're, a lot of times it's compressed and you don't get the actual rehearsal that you need sometimes. So what was your process getting there?
So who, plays with Mellencamp and Ian Hunter and lots of other people. And we practiced just the two of us a bunch. And Andy's always been really supportive of me and really just never said anything but positive things to me. And so I remember thinking, oh no. So I went home and I actually went to the phone, grocery, and cancel, because I thought, I'm going to embarrass myself. I can't do this. And I picked up the phone and I was like, no, I don't want to be a quitter. Just like Bob said, don't
It's
quit.
like Boston,
I don't want
yeah.
to be a quitter. So I did that a few times. Unfortunately, I never actually. But eventually, through these rehearsals with Andy, I found a way to sing it without feeling like I was imitating him. A lot of the same phrasing, pronouns.
Mhm.
So we rehearsals. I only had one full band rehearsal,
Wow.
and 2 days before that rehearsal, I thought, oh, harmonica on this record. Maybe I didn't know you play harmonica, and I said, I've been playing for 2 days, so. And that's a little bit evident. It's pretty,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I
Um,
didn't want to show them up.
well, it's amazing to me because this record actually got 4. It's just it's the Tastemaker magazine for rock and especially rock and roll in the United States, and they gave it 4 stars, which is their highest. And can you tell us this story? Writing kind of more a very very different style of music than you're doing now, right? Like in the 90s,
Well,
and it was
I did a dance record. I did a 12-inch dancing
yeah,
bill under the name Kortes,
uh-huh.
which is the most popular mispronunciation of my last name. And it was called Put Your Body On. And it was a really fun little dance record of early 90s, maybe. But I was visiting my sister at Christmas time when the year that record came out. And I was watching MTV. And I think it was Ice Cube came on and Artist of the Year, and they had various artists saying who their favorite artist was of the year. And my head turned the television into, well, I changed who was being interviewed into Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan announced that his favorite artist was this artist named Cortez. That was great. This is, you know how you have a fantasy, reflexively,
Yes.
So fast forward 10 or so years later, and reviewing my version of Blood on the Tracks, I knew that Dylan had put the song on his website. And so in the caption underneath my photograph is Dylan Fave.
Amazing.
So the little fantasy manifested itself.
I think it's really incredible, and I think that it ties in so beautifully to this idea of like the power of our dreams, and so
Yes,
that it's almost prophetic in a that they were speaking to you about your life to come. Things happened, but also like pulling you into the future, which I think is just it's so important as an artist too to have those kind of touchstones, something to draw you along.
hard
Not to like it's definitely not being a male artist is also very hard, but it's a totally different animal when you're a woman, I think.
absolutely.
I think it's just one of the coolest stories. The Bob Dylan actually said Dylan Fave on his website, and that was up for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Almost a year. I
That's
kept going back. It's still there.
so you have this capacity as to really imagine things and then make them manifest them. So speak a little bit more about that. Like, do you think that is like a Mary Lee thing? That's just who you are, or is this book kind of trying to let that be something that's available to anyone that will kind of grab it? Or
Oh,
tell me.
well, I would hope it's I get an idea. It won't leave me alone. It won't leave me alone. I have to do it. And then it's done. Or I get an idea and it doesn't leave me alone. It fades. So I let it go. But I
Wow.
do get possessed by some things. I think also part of it's being open. Like you have to walk around being open so that your ideas hit you,
Mhm.
most of us, we're so defended all the time because life's hard and we've been through hell, most of us, some kind of
Mhm.
hell, some version of hell, right? And you develop defenses and you can't, you keep things out, stay safe, don't bother me. Things are going
Mhm.
smoothly, leave me alone. That doesn't let the juicy stuff in either, like the good stuff that you could turn into something. So I think being open to your own experience and your own associations, because sometimes I'm walking somewhere and I get an idea for, and I wasn't planning on writing a song that day, but I sing and it turns into words and music in my head. And then I give it this sort of,
Yeah. So that's been the process that's for you as far as like original material creation. And apparently even just like
yeah, I mean, I love to sing other people's,
Mhm.
just, and I don't have many covers on my albums. I have Townes Van Zandt on one of
Mhm.
them, it's a
Yeah.
different point of creativity somehow.
Yeah. Well, I loved reading more about your career, which is, it's just so, music is clearly this deep center and this well. You're a writer. You are, you're like, I'm not even sure, like a creative director, basically, like with this book. This was not your own writing. You do therapy with songwriting. You've done so many wonderful things around music as well and creativity. Like, talk a little bit about how, like, just gelled within you.
Yeah.
And
I remember when I moved to New York City right out of college, and during the day I worked at this job, right? And I remember thinking to myself, how do people do just one thing? You do this one thing and then you go home. Like, I just can't see myself doing that. It's just not for me. And so I think maybe just hardwired to just be like a quilt of a person, all these different things going on. And I love making stuff up. I just do. It's like
Mhm.
all
Something that adults often lose contact with. So
right.
hard to, you see children, it's effortless, and it's sometimes so hard to get.
Wasn't making hardly any money, and it was really awful. And I heard about this woman who we had friends in common who started this organization teaching songwriting to children who'd lost family in 9/11. And then it grew from there to other kinds of trauma, other kinds of trauma that children had survived. So I started teaching songwriting classes to them and seeing how therapeutic it was. And that made me really want to continue along that path as well. So I went back to school and got a degree in social work and have incorporated that stuff together, music along with therapy work. So, everybody knows how transformative music is. That's why we love it.
Yeah,
Some music transforms you, some doesn't. And then you don't like that stuff. Maybe you're
right.
not into jazz. It doesn't do anything for you. Country really puts you in some other place. That's just because we're individuals.
Yeah. I think I'd love to just talk, because we're obviously with the American Center in Moscow today. I'd love to just briefly touch on we're both musicians that have gotten the amazing opportunity to tour in Russia. And I'd love to just hear just a few snapshots and like how that felt for you, and especially in this thing of like connecting, right? Connecting to people who maybe don't have the same cultural touchstones and paradigms, but somehow music, for us, that was the experience with my band. The music somehow brought us into the same space, despite language difference, despite
Yeah.
cultural difference. So, what was your experience there?
It's hard to boil it down, really. It was phenomenal. In terms of the music we performed, we were performing some music that a lot of people knew because there's a lot of Dylan fans there.
Yeah.
Then I performed some of my own songs too. And what was really wild was like I don't notice things a lot because I'm so involved in what I'm doing. And sometimes I have, it's not necessarily a good thing. But my band said to me, they're responding just as much to your songs
Mm.
as the cover tunes. And I said, really?
Mhm.
And I said to myself, no, they're not. They're just really, they're just, but they actually don't make things up. So, that was, and then to have the interaction after the shows with people it was really hard to speak with most of them because we didn't speak the same language, but just the love and excitement they felt from hearing the live music.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard to reduce it to words in a way. Maybe
Mhm.
you're better at that than me, but 'cause I find it was just great. It was
Yeah.
really phenomenal. Kids coming up and wanting to know you. It was so touching, and
Yeah.
to have that language that does cut through everything, the language of music that just
Yeah.
it gets us.
Yeah. I found Russian people in general, of course, that's, everybody's different, obviously, but culturally, in general, I found it to be a culture very open, like to
Mhm.
just they want to experience music, and they're ready to hear whatever you're gonna bring, and there was a trust, I think, and an openness that made it very easy and to connect.
Yes. Well put. I felt that way too. Yeah, it was there was no border. Sometimes
Yeah,
there is with performers and audience.
yeah,
There just wasn't.
yeah,
It was really fantastic and really life altering in a way that I'm not sure I can articulate. But when you get to see other cultures and other countries, um,
hmm
it's it's such a gift. I
yeah.
actually wrote a song about it called "The Music Got Me Here" because I
Oh, that's
being able to
cool.
travel, but I really prefer if it's music that gets me there.
Well, listen, I could talk to you for hours and hours because you're a fascinating person who's done amazing things, and we got to only a tiny, just like a small percentage of all the things that we could talk about that you've done. But I do want to just highlight again your book. It's called Dreaming of Dylan, and it's this compilation of dreams from all over the world of this archetype of Bob Dylan, and what he is to not just Americans really, but to people all over the world. And I think that's what happens with our heroes. They become like Vysotsky, like Bob Dylan. Um, and so I would love to just thank the American Center in Moscow for this chance
Yes,
to
thank you
talk to
so much.
Mary Lee. It's an honor for me. I'm super excited to be able to talk to you like this. It's a real privilege for me. And the Vysotsky and Dylan concerts and conversations are going to be available on the American Center's website, YouTube website, and also just on social media platforms. So you can see this again. You can watch this. You can watch the concerts. You can watch the other conversations. And Mary Lee, thank you so much for your time. Blood on the
Thank
Tracks Live is your Dylan record. And there's so many other great records of Mary Lee's to check out. So
And if
check,
you ever get to go to Russia, go. It's
yes.
so beautiful. It's profound. Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place with beautiful people. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Let's
thank
go
you so
back.
much for your time. Okay.
Thank you, Laura Ann.
Thank you, Mary Lee.
Okay. Well, that felt pretty good. You still there, Laura Ann?